See the red light.
Recording started.
Okay, welcome everyone. We're here at Florida Closing and Escrow, and we're the only title company in Sunny Isles. We have a 5-star rating, and we're mobile, multilingual, and our goal is your success. Also, John Iwana, the owner, was voted in the top 50 real estate attorneys in America. And we're here to provide you updated information. We also help you with marketing tools, up-to-date education, and more. If you want to get in touch with us, you can reach me directly at 786-457-6832 or 1-800-FL-CLOSE. And our topic today is the updated condo rider. And John also attended the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas. So he's going to speak at the end about Bitcoin and real estate, which we do accept now for closings. So welcome, John.
Thank you, Cindy. I would talk about what happened in Vegas, but that's yeah. But I'll sum it up maybe toward the end. All right, so welcome everyone here, welcome everyone online. Today, as Cindy mentioned, we're going to talk about the updated condominium rider that just came out last month. And we have that here, but we're going to talk about you online. If you can pull up the most updated condo rider, you'll know it's the most updated condo rider because on the bottom of the page, under where it says page 1 of 5, it says CR7, revised June 2025. So that's the most up-to-date version out there. It actually was revised, I think it was like June 30th. So it basically came out last month. And really what happened was this is in response to the tragedy in Surfside. So they made some additions and revisions to the condominium rider. We're going to go over them. There are quite a few, but I'm going to touch on the important ones that you as realtors are going to be concerned about. So first big change was, as you can see on the first page, they basically took what was on the last page and put it on the first page regarding contact information for the association and the management company. They've placed that here on the first page, which is a good idea because that is important. You want to know who to contact and who's in charge, either at the association or management company. But even above that, they placed this paragraph here. And what's important for you as realtors, they're just reminding you that if it's a homeowners association, you use the homeowners association addendum, right? For condominiums, you use the condominium rider. And the last sentence of that paragraph is a big change. Seller shall also complete a separate rider, condominium rider, for each condominium association. So before you could put a master and a regular on this condominium rider, there was a space where you can put 2 monthly payments. That is no longer the case. So for every association, you have to have a separate one of these. So I know Privé has, 2 or 3 of them? So if you're working in Privé, you definitely need more than one condominium rider. So just be wary of that. Each association requires a separate condominium rider. I believe they're all down there, the extra copies. Yeah. Hi, welcome. Good. Okay, so that's big change number 1. So just know that if there's a master and a regular, you need 2 of these condominium riders that need to be attached to the offer that you're submitting. If you know the association and management company information, you can input it there. If you don't, leave it blank and ask the listing agent to fill in that information. Okay, change number 2. Not a big change, but under paragraph 1, they added the word condominium. You'll see that throughout the rider. Anywhere where it used to say just association approval, they've added the word condominium because they want to remind everyone that this is for condominiums and not homeowner associations. Next big change, I'd say staying in paragraph 1, 1, 2, 3. Let's go with the 3rd line down. Starts with within blank, if left blank 5 days after the effective date, seller shall initiate the approval process. That's the same, that didn't change, but the question was, what did that mean? The seller's gonna initiate the approval process. I didn't even know what that meant, so they clarified. So the next sentence continuing on says, with the condominium association and provide buyer with a copy of the current application for approval. This is new. So that sentence right there, and provide buyer with a copy of the current application for approval, has been added. So now we know what the seller needs to do to initiate the process. They need to get the application from the association and give it to the buyer or buyer's agent. All right? So no more, hey, well, what's the contact information? How do I get the application if you're representing a buyer? Now, the listing agent must provide you a copy of that
That's a
application.
great idea, because it's always ambiguous. Either you got the number, or you
Right.
got the wrong number, right?
Yeah.
Get it from the
So
beginning.
sometimes the Florida Association of Realtors and the Florida Bar gets it right when they make changes. So if you're a listing agent and someone asks you for a copy of the application, you have to get it and give it to them, because this is in the contract. It's part of the contract. It's in this rider, and it says the buyer must be given a copy of the current application. Okay? And then they added next sentence, and it says, and buyer shall, it used to say shall apply for such approval. So they added the word promptly apply. You know, when they do something good, it's good. When they do something not so good, it's not so good. So what does promptly mean? I don't know. But at least it just didn't say shall, buyer shall apply. They wanted to make it, give it a little bit of time, but they added the word promptly. So, you know, promptly, I don't know. What does that mean to you? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, something like that.
So, and if he doesn't, is the buyer in default?
Right, so yes, so if the buyer does not promptly apply for such approval, the buyer is not complying with the terms of the condominium rider.
So the seller may cancel.
Right.
Based on his default.
Right, but then they're gonna argue, okay, what's promptly mean? And then you hire
the
two
contract.
attorneys? Right here.
Okay.
Yeah, the attorneys are gonna argue what
In the
promptly means.
contract usually say how many days.
Right, so for the condominium rider, right now, all it says is promptly.
But you
But
back-
can I-
you
can
back
I-
to the contract, and the contract say usually how many days you need to go to the association.
No.
No?
No.
No, but
The
here you
condominium
can we control this space?
Right,
When you
so.
put the dates and I said by,
So right above it where it says within blank days after the effective date, it says seller shall initiate the approval process and provide the copy of the application. And a buyer shall promptly apply for such approval. So if you represent a buyer, I'd say within a week, 5 days, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, make sure that they fill in the application and send it in.
So if we represent a seller, wouldn't the seller want to change promptly to 3 days?
I wouldn't change anything here if you're the seller. Just follow the rules. You can leave it within 5 days. That gives the seller enough time to get a copy of the application and
Well, I
give
didn't mean
it.
From that perspective at all. I just meant the onus and responsibility of the buyer to promptly do it. If I'm a seller, right, and I'm getting this from my buyer and I'm
Uh-huh.
looking at that, wouldn't I want to, as a seller, change promptly to 3 days, 4 days, 5 days?
If you want to cross it out and change it, I wouldn't do that.
John, can I?
I'd just leave
here-
it the way it is.
Can I put 10 days, because they say 10 days prior to closing? So so if I put 10 days here, so I'm forcing the buyer agent to do everything because we need an approval 10 days before the closing. Can I
So
drop this down or not?
that's for the approval. The line she's talking about says, if approval is required, this contract is contingent upon buyer being approved by the association no later than if left blank 5 days. So you're asking to put that for 10, so you're putting some pressure on the buyer to make sure that they move forward quickly.
Fast.
Can do that.
Let's say
Again,
15
everything
days.
is negotiable,
Okay,
right? So
sorry.
whatever you put, the buyer's gonna look at it and they might say, well, no, we want 5 days, and then you have to negotiate that. But yeah, you can put whatever number you want there.
Okay.
Obviously, if you represent the buyer, the 5 days is good. Okay, so paragraph 2, nothing changed on this page. It's all the same. If there's a right of first refusal, the developer or the association or the members have a right to purchase. So that part has not changed. Okay. Next, we go to paragraph 3. There is a change that I talked about earlier. Paragraph 3, there used to be 2 blank lines for assessments and then 1 for the recreation area. Now they've removed that second one and they only have the 1, and they added the words right under 3A condominium second line. They added the word regular periodic. So it just used to say condominium association assessments. Now they added the words regular periodic, meaning this is regarding the monthly dues and not necessarily special assessments. Special assessments they talk about under paragraph C. So this is the regular monthly dues. This is the amount that you put there under 3A. And now obviously you check off monthly, quarterly, or whatnot. So then we go to paragraph 3C. Big changes here, and also very, very important. Special assessments is a huge issue, especially down here in South Florida. We have all the new reserve studies being done and everything, and so associations are needing to impose special assessments to pay for repairs. So let's go through paragraph 3CI. The change here is as follows. It says, if the condominium association has levied any special or additional assessments as of the effective date, then check 1, buyer or seller. If left blank, then seller. This is a change. It used to be if left blank, buyer. Seller shall pay all assessments in full prior to closing. So be very careful who you represent. If you represent a buyer, you can leave it blank. If you represent a seller and you're negotiating assessments and you've come to an agreement that the buyer is going to pay for the assessments, make sure you check off the word buyer. Very important, because if you don't, if you leave it blank, if you forget about this section, if it's blank, your seller is going to be paying for any special assessments as of the effective date. And the reason why this is so important is because special assessments nowadays can run 20, 30, 50, $100,000. So if the agreement was verbally, buyer's paying for it, and you don't have it in writing, and we go to closing and we look at this section and buyer says, oh, well, actually it's left blank, so seller's gonna pay for it. You know, buyers will sometimes have a short memory about what the conversation was. If you have just emails or text messages, it's not good enough. So be very, very careful. If you're a listing agent, make sure you check off the appropriate box here. Again, next subparagraph, double I, again says if the condominium association levies any special or additional assessments after the effective date. So I was prior to the effective date, before signing the contract. If there are any special assessments, you negotiate those. Double I talks about any special assessments assessed after the effective date and prior to the closing date. So sometimes when you sign a contract, there's a 45-day or 60-day window there for closing. If a special assessment is passed in that window, be very careful here again what box is checked and what you've negotiated. If you leave it blank, again, seller is the default check. So make sure again, if you represent a seller and you're talking about special assessments and the buyer says, yeah, no problem, I'm going to pay for all the special assessments prior to closing, make sure to check off buyer. If you don't, there's no way of getting around this. This is what is in writing, initialed by the parties. The seller will be responsible for their special assessments, so please be very careful. Triple I, notwithstanding the provisions of I or double I above, and this is new, if any special or additional assessments may be paid in installments. This is sometimes a big issue. The current seller is paying in installments. buyer wants to know if they can pay those installments or pick up those installments. It's up to the association, so continuing reading, and the condominium association will allow buyer to assume installments scheduled to be paid after closing. Then seller shall, prior to or at closing, pay all installments which are payable on or before closing, and then check one of the boxes. And here, the reverse is true. If left blank, then buyer shall pay installments payable after closing. And then it goes on to tell us that if seller is checked, or if the condominium association does not allow a buyer to assume installments. So sometimes they'll allow the current seller to pay in installments, but when we ask for the estoppel, we'll have on the estoppel that the association wants the special assessments to no longer be paid in installments, and they want them paid in full. They don't care who's gonna pay it, but they just say special assessment must be paid in full at time of closing, and they do not allow the continuation of the monthly payments. So it says seller shall pay the special assessment or additional assessments in full prior to or at time of closing. Okay, so triple I, very important, please, if you get anything out of this, do not leave these blank. Please check off the appropriate boxes. It's gonna save you and your clients a lot of money moving forward.
Excuse me,
Okay.
John,
Yeah.
have you come across any condos that don't allow?
Sure.
You have.
Sure, yeah. We would get estoppel letters that say the special assessment is now required to be paid in full.
Yeah.
They, actually, the association that I live in, they do that.
Oh,
They're
okay.
allowing us to pay in installments, but anytime a new person comes in, they don't get the benefits of being an owner. They say, no, we want it all paid in full, which they're completely entitled to do, which obviously helps them out because it, gets the assessment paid in full.
I have it there right now, and the assessment is $32,014. So I remember that's paid in full before closing.
Yeah.
Just curious.
So paragraph 4, subparagraph 4, it says a special or additional assessment shall be deemed levied, because above, under paragraph CI, it says if the condominium association has levied. And again, so what does levied mean? So they define levied and they say that levied means when such assessment has been approved, basically under Florida law in the condominium documents. So when they've had a meeting and on the minutes, it says they're voting on a special assessment. If they have that meeting and the vote is taken and it's been approved, so that means it's been levied. And that's the date of when that levy takes place. Okay?
So the purpose of 5 is just to define
4
4.
defines what levied means, yes. Okay? So that's paragraph 3C. So 2 big things there. You need 2 condominium riders for each association. The second important thing today is the special assessments under paragraph 3C. Make sure to check them off. Do not leave them blank. Okay? Paragraph 4, no change here. This is just talking about the sprinkler system. Paragraph 5, this is talking about the condominium documents. There is let's say a big change here, and it goes to paragraph B, next page. The big change here is they've changed 3 days to 7
Wow.
days. So this is in regards to the condominium documents. This paragraph states that this agreement is voidable by buyer by delivering written notice of the buyer's intention to cancel within 7 days, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays. So this is 7 business days after the date of execution of this agreement by the buyer and receipt by buyer of the current copy of the declaration, basically the condo docs. So this section kind of stays the same. So this is where the seller has to give the condo docs to the buyer, and the condo docs are the declaration. Not too many people read that. That's just legal stuff. But what is important is the bylaws and the rules of the association. It's very important to get the rules in case your buyer has a dog, if there's weight limits on a dog, if there's any restrictions for dogs, that's always very important. If they have a certain type of truck, there's some restrictions on whether you can put trucks in the garage and things like that. So the rules are very important. And the other very important thing of the condo docs is the financials. Now, why are the financials important? The financials tell us and tell the buyer if they have any money in reserves. And why is that important? Because something's going to break in the condominium association, especially here in South Florida with the heat and the salt and the rain and the hurricanes. Something's going to break. So an elevator needs repair, or a roof, or a wall, or the windows, or whatever, anything in the common areas, if they break, if there is money in reserves, the money in reserves is used to repair those items. If there are no money in reserves, meaning there's nothing, all they have is their budget of whatever they're doing now, the maintenance is continuing, they have their monthly dues that covers that. Anything other than that, they need to pass special assessments. So if the reserves are very low, buyers want to know that because special assessments could be upcoming. So the rules and the financials are the two very important parts of the condominium documents. And so now, upon receipt of the condominium documents, so not within 7 days after the contract or after the effective day or anything like that. It's 7 business days after receipt of all the condominium documents. So if you get them 7 days or 10 days prior to closing, you have up until closing to cancel. So one of the issues, sometimes we'll get questions from buyers saying, hey, I want out. I changed my mind. I don't want to buy this place. I found something else. Can I get out? We'll ask 3 questions. Do you have a inspection period? Has that passed? Yes or no? If it has not passed, you can cancel and get your deposit back. Do you have a financing contingency? If you haven't got approval from the financing, you can cancel. Number 3, have you received the condo docs? If you have not, you have a right to cancel based on that. So it's also very important if you're a listing agent to provide the condominium documents to the buyer as soon as possible so that clock starts to tick. If you wait, or if you never give it, you're basically giving the buyer an absolute right to cancel all the way up to closing. So
Well,
another thing to be careful about.
I've done that successfully, representing the buyer
Uh-huh.
that just got cold feet, and we canceled successfully right before the closing, because we never got the docs.
One of the
Exactly.
best things, if you are a listing agent, most of them they do, they put all those documents, condo docs and the approval, the application, all those things on the MLS.
Yeah.
Attached. So when you have the listings, you already have every single thing as a
Very
bid.
good.
And another thing, as a buyer agent, if you are, because the buyers now, they could change their mind because of that. So whenever you be sending this, we should make sure when we send the condo docs and rule regulation, they say confirm is received. Because someone can say, I never received, it was my spam or something, you know?
Right.
So usually what we do, we use Outlook and we put their little corner, received and initial, so they can say, I didn't see it, so you can see they open. Because we have few cases like this, the buyer says, I never received it.
Yeah. It's very important. That's a good point to have that receipt of condo docs. If you're having any issues you think that you might have with the buyer, it's very important to get that. Also, your mention of, okay, it's on the MLS, but at least make sure you send an email to the buyer's agent with the link, because you have to provide the condo docs to them. You just can't say nothing and say, oh, well, it was on the MLS. You didn't check? And they're going to say, no, you never told us to check. So make sure you notify them that it's on the MLS and maybe even provide the link for that. That way you can protect yourself.
And that is in the chain, this check it.
So yeah, so you want to check this box B. Box A from the previous page says that the buyer already has received the condo docs. Maybe they live there, maybe they have a unit there, or maybe they don't even want them. They just want the unit so bad that they're saying, yeah, don't worry, 5A, we don't need a copy of the condo docs. We're waiving our right to receive the condo docs, okay?
Maybe they receive from the MLS attachment,
Yeah.
if you have it there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next change, paragraph 6. 6A, this is an addition, they've made this addition to this section. Seller shall, at seller's expense, provide buyer with current copies of the condominium documents specified in paragraph 5 above, as well as the governance form described in section 718. So before the prior condominium rider, if you recall, it said seller shall at, and buyer may or may not request. So it was allowing the buyer to check off a box that said if they wanted them or not. Now, it's basically telling the seller, you shall, you have to. There's no option for the buyer to take the condo docs or not here. If they're requesting them above, you shall, at seller's expense, provide buyer with a current copy of the condominium documents. So the condominium documents we talked about is above: declaration, articles, bylaws, financials, rules. And what they added was, because they passed a law, and it's Florida Statute 718-5032B, it's a governance form regarding condominiums. It's a 4-pager. It's very simple. If you just type in this statute number in any search engine, it's a 4-page document. If you need it, I can provide it to you. You must include this governance form with the condominium documents as well.
Wow.
If you don't, you're not providing a full set of the condominium documents as required by this condominium rider, and buyer may cancel and get their deposit back. So, very important, get the condo docs and also get this governance form. And really, the governance form, it just says the rights of the unit owners, the rights of the association. It just kind of gives everyone's rules as regarding an association, regarding meetings and things like that. So make sure to include the governance form. Again, if you need a copy, please email me or Cindy and we'll send it out to you. Okay? And then another change, they were working hard on this condominium rather. There's a bunch of changes, right? Hopefully it's all sinking in. 6B, this whole section is new. So as we just talked about, what's the condo docs above? The condo docs did not include minutes of the board meetings or agendas of the board meetings or any insurance or anything like that. So some buyers want to know what's been are they talking about upcoming huge projects or whatnot? So what the Florida Association of Realtors said is, let's give the buyer the option to request certain additional condominium documents. And that's the minutes of the association board meetings, the agenda of the association board meetings, and also the minutes of the association member meetings and the agendas for those member meetings. Question is for you as realtors, should you check these boxes off or should you not? It's up to the buyer. You know, sometimes you have buyers that want to know everything and they read everything. If you have a buyer like that, check off these boxes. If you have a buyer that says, I don't care, I want that unit, I already have something in that building, you don't necessarily need to check these boxes off. So up to you. It depends. Obviously, minutes is important because it talks about potentially upcoming assessments and what's going on in the association. So it might be good to know or to let your buyer know what's going on. So if you do decide, or the buyer does decide that they want these things, check these boxes.
Okay.
Whichever ones you want. The difference is there's board meetings and I guess member meetings. So board meetings are just between the board, obviously, and member meetings are the board and the members. So if you want a copy of the insurance declaration, you know, everyone has insurance and it usually covers everything. So that's not too important. So make sure to check this off, because if you do, at the top under 6B, it says seller shall, at seller's expense, provide buyer with a copy of the following. Okay? And then below it, it says this agreement may be terminated by buyer by delivering written notice, as we saw just above, of intention to cancel within 7 days after the date the buyer receives all the documents requested in this subparagraph. So if you check off minutes, agendas, and things like that, and they do not receive them from you as a listing agent, they have a right to cancel again. So if these boxes are checked, you receive this as a listing agent, make sure to get those minutes and agendas.
So, okay.
Most likely now, associations, this has been in circulation now for over a month. Associations are aware, people asking for these, so I know there's a law coming up, I believe it starts in January of next year, where all of this information has to be on the association's website. So, yeah, but it's not there yet, but some associations are doing that, so if you ask the association for the condo docs, they'll know what you're asking for, and if you ask for the minutes and agendas, they know that they have to provide that to you.
But they provide it to us as a listing agent or to the owner only?
Right, so it depends on the association, but it's your responsibility as a seller. It says seller shall at seller's expense.
So the owner has to get
So
this.
if a buyer says, don't worry, I'll get it, and then they forget to get it, and then they never get it, and you never follow up, they can cancel at the closing date saying they never got it. And you're gonna say, well, what do you say you were gonna get? And they're gonna say, I don't remember saying that. And then what happens? You have to go to your seller and say they're canceling because I forgot to follow up with the condo docs, and then you're not gonna look so good in front of your clients. So
Wow.
be very
In the last
careful.
2 weeks,
with that.
I've had 2 condo associations, they have been so wonderful, so
Yeah.
forthcoming, like quick, because they know you need it, they're prepared for us. They've been great,
Oh, good.
really good.
Yeah. So that's good news. Paragraph 7, no change here. I just want to bring up the fact that just remember parking spaces number does not mean the number of parking spaces that's included. It means the actual parking space number. So in our association, it's G275 or something like that. You would put that here. You wouldn't put 1. It's not parking space number 1. You have to find out the parking space, because parking spaces, if you're part of an association, some parking spaces are really good. Some are so far away that you need a bike to get to the elevator. So make sure to find the parking space and to include that here. Garage number, that usually means sometimes there's different levels. These bigger buildings will have garage level 1, 2, 3, where the parking space is located. That's usually blank. I don't see that too much. Other, sometimes that refers to, you can put a storage unit there or anything in addition to the parking space. And if you do put a storage space, remember to put the storage space number. That's also important to have. Okay.
I have a question on parking spaces.
Uh-huh.
Some condo buildings have deeded parking and then they have assigned. If the building assigns you a parking spot, should you just leave that off the parking space number? Or in deeded, buildings that are deeded, I always put a number. But what if
Yeah.
they're assigned? What do you recommend?
Definitely still put the parking space number, because sometimes those parking space numbers attach to the property. So just as an assignability, the two can stay together. There are associations that will say that it's up to us. We can move you wherever we want, which
I heard.
if they do that, there's nothing you can do, it's fine. But it's always good to put the space number and then see what happens after that. Okay, paragraph 8, no changes. Paragraph 9, no big change here because this was already changed. Paragraph 9 talks about the milestone inspection report, the structural integrity reserve studies, and the turnover inspections, right? So these, if you're submitting a condominium rider, I would check off 9A1, 9B1, and 9C1, and D2. So if you're representing a buyer, you're submitting a condo rider, 9A1, 9B1, 9C1, 9D2. And basically, this is requesting those inspections, reserve studies, and things like that. These are important. Obviously, the structural integrity and reserve study talks about the integrity of the building and what repairs are going to be needed and when and how much. So that gives you basically a breakdown of an architect or an inspector comes in and says, okay, so you have your elevators, they're about 5 or 10 years old, they're gonna last another 10 years. To get new elevators, which you're gonna need in 10 years, is gonna cost $100,000. So that's in the reserve study, which is good to know. If you're buying now and there's a bunch of things coming due, something to consider, there's gonna be a lot of assessments coming up if there's not enough money in reserves. But it's very important to know these things. So you check off the I's and let the seller say, well, it's required, but it hasn't been done yet. And then they can always change it to triple I, or in some instances, 9B, the turnover inspection report. A turnover inspection report is the turnover inspection when the developer transfers the property to the owners. So there's that transfer there. So what happens is they do an inspection, one final inspection to make sure that all the work has been done satisfactory, and then the developer hands it over to the association. So that most likely, if it's not a newer building, if it's an older building, it's probably not required. So you might get the listing agent to say, hey, 9B, we're changing it to 2. It's not required, which is fine, and they would initial it, and then the buyers would initial it as well. Okay? So the other big change here is on the 9D section. The 3 days for this one has also again been changed to 7 business days. So with these inspection reports and reserve studies, the buyer again has 7 business days after receipt. It's identical, the wording is identical to the condo doc section, where the buyer has 7 business days after they receive these reports to review them and decide if they want to move forward. If they do, they can continue on. If they don't, they can cancel and get their deposit back. Okay. And disclosure summary, no change to paragraph 10. So, whew, we did it, people.
Wow.
That's the condominium wrapper.
Is this things include the buildings that 3 floors or less?
So 2 floors, 2 and below do not need the structural integrity things, no. But 3 and above
3
do,
and above?
yes.
And
So-
John, we have 5 minutes left if you want to talk about Bitcoin after you answer.
5 minutes left, sure. So basically, the good news about Bitcoin is that we have been approved to be a money services business. We have a license for a money transmittal. So what that means is when you have a buyer that says, hey, I want to buy a property, but I want to use Bitcoin, can I do so? We used to say no, and that's what happened, and what got me on this path was someone asked me, hey, John, can you do a crypto closing? And I said no, and I said no really fast. I was like, nope. Then I thought to myself, well, why am I saying no, and why am I saying it so fast? So isn't there a book, How to Get to Yes? So I went on a 6-month journey to find out everything I could about cryptocurrencies. It's fascinating. It's the way of the future. It's here, but it's not that prevalent. You might get 1 or 2 buyers, maybe whenever, but there's more money being made in crypto now. The governments are now being pro crypto. So a lot of people are making a lot of money. So some crypto buyers and owners might want to say, okay, so I have this much in crypto. Maybe I want to diversify and have some assets, real estate assets. Maybe I want some income producing assets. So they want to get out of crypto, maybe use those funds to purchase real estate. So you can now say yes to a buyer that says, I want to use crypto. And how that process works, Cindy, do I have time to explain that process?
Quickly,
Okay, so you would say, yes, we have an escrow company that does that. And basically you would send them our contact information. We have to do a background check on them because cryptocurrencies is like paying with cash. So you can't come to a closing with $1 million in cash. You can't drop a suitcase here. has to go to the bank, and the bank does background checks. So what we do is we do background checks on the buyer. They have to upload their ID, they have to go through biometrics, they have to go through background checks on OFAC sanctions, they go through federal sanctions lists to make sure they're not criminals or terrorists or money, laundering money. So once they clear that, if they're approved, we send them our crypto wallet. They send us the crypto to our wallet. We immediately convert it to fiat, which is US dollars. And then we hold that money if it's an escrow deposit, and then at closing, they can use cash to close. They send us the money, we convert it to US dollars, and we pay the seller in US dollars, and we pay the realtors and the government, everyone in US dollars. If the seller does want crypto, we can also pay the seller in crypto. So the good news is you can say yes now.
I have a question on that.
If you want, Cindy, we can end this
Let
and
me
we
just
can.
end the
Bye,
broadcast.
guys.
And we're going to take questions and/or you can contact us. And I just want to thank everyone who attended in person and live at bowlive.net. And again, we're at Florida Closing and Escrow, title company with 5-star rating in Sunny Isles and mobile, multilingual, and more. And we're here to assist you in your success. Thank you for joining us today.